You call this space exploration? What happens when you mix billionaires, celebrities, and just enough narcissism to power a small nation? You get the most cringe space mission in history. No, this isn't Interstellar. This isn't even Space Camp. This is what happens when Blue Origin hands out golden tickets like it's Willy Wonka's chocolate factory. Except instead of chocolate, it's selfies, spacesuits, and spiritual awakenings sponsored by Amazon Katty. Perry, Gayle King, Lauren Sanchez, and a handful of other hand-selected women just became the first all-female space crew. And if you're rolling your eyes already, you're not alone. Because while this historic mission was supposed to empower women, what it actually did was empower the internet to roast them into orbit. And believe me, they deserved every bit of it. The Billionaire Barbie Space Club. Let's break it down. On paper, this was supposed to be a proud moment for women in STEM, the first all-female crew to launch into space on a Blue Origin rocket. Except, here's the plot twist. It wasn't really a crew, and it wasn't really a mission. This wasn't a team of elite scientists, astronauts, or engineers. This was Katy Perry. Yes, teenage dream Katy Perry, clutching a daisy and looking for cosmic validation, while Gayle King sobbed into her designer jumpsuit. They weren't there to conduct experiments. They were there to pose. They weren't chosen for their contributions to science, but for their connections to Jeff Bezos. You know, the guy who thinks space is the New Hamptons. And in the grand tradition of performative activism, the entire launch was sold as a gift to humanity. A moment of divine feminine energy, an 11-minute joyride dressed up like hidden figures, except instead of Katherine Johnson, we got influencer space tourists floating around with flower bouquets and motivational Instagram captions. Take up space, but not like that. The slogan? Take up space. Sounds empowering, right? Until you realize it wasn't meant metaphorically. They literally took up space, in a capsule, for 10 minutes. While the rest of us watched in stunned confusion. Katy Perry emerged from the capsule like she just survived the Martian. She kissed the Earth. She wept. She called the experience profound. Meanwhile, the rest of us were just trying to figure out what the hell she even did up there. Gayle King said it wasn't a ride, it was a journey. Oprah Winfrey cried, and all across the internet people were like, did we watch the same thing? Because if your biggest takeaway from 11 minutes in space is, I feel love, you might need to go back and read a science book. Internet Roast Fest begins. Now here's the fun part. The internet had a field day. Memes, endless. Satire, ruthless. And, perhaps most shocking of all, even celebrities were roasting them. Olivia Wilde reposted the now infamous clip of Katy Perry dramatically kissing the ground, writing, "She's acting like she just returned from Apollo 13. Ouch. Amy Schumer jumped in with a fake story about being added to the crew last minute while on the subway, casually bringing some random object into space. She called out exactly what this was, a parody of itself. Even Martha Stewart of all people trolled them, posting a throwback video of her zero-gravity experience and pairing it with a Katy Perry lyric. You know you've lost the plot when Martha Stewart is coming for your neck. And then, of course, came the barrage of internet comments. It's not a flight, it's a billionaire Disneyland ride. She's not an astronaut, she's a glorified passenger. If this is female empowerment, I'm going back to bed. Let's talk about real astronauts. Let's not forget what an astronaut actually is. Historically, being an astronaut meant surviving intense physical training, mastering complex systems, and risking your life for the advancement of science. These women didn't do that. They didn't pilot the spacecraft. They didn't conduct any experiments. They didn't even press a button. The capsule was remotely operated. This was, at best, a really expensive roller coaster ride. Alan Shepard became the first American in space in 1961. He changed history. These ladies duplicated his flight. 60 years later, with Wi-Fi. Let that sink in. We don't celebrate people for taking a theme park ride, and yet here we are, being told this was some kind of divine sacred act of gender equality. Gayle King's meltdown now. Gayle King, whew. Let's talk about her. She went on a full PR tour trying to convince the world this was not a ride. Don't you dare call it a ride, she shouted into the void of Twitter. It was a journey. A journey? Really? They didn't go to Mars. They didn't even do a full orbit. They floated for a few minutes and came back with a new level of self-importance that could be seen from space. But Gail wasn't done. She started preaching about how this inspired women around the world. "Don't ignore what we did," she pleaded. "Okay, Gail, but what did you do? Other than fly coach on Bezos Air and make sure your Daisy was camera ready? And just to be clear, if someone questions the legitimacy of your 10-minute commercial break in space, it's not sexism. It's common sense. The selfie space race. We have officially entered the selfie space age. Forget pushing the boundaries of human knowledge. This is about pushing the best lighting for your zero-gravity photo shoot." Katy Perry sang, "What a Wonderful World." She floated around holding a daisy for her daughter and said she felt super connected to love. Meanwhile, I'm trying to figure out if she was high or just drunk on relevance. Lauren Sanchez whispered "girl power" like she was auditioning for a Spice Girls reboot, and together, they turned a moment that could have inspired millions into a glorified Instagram story. They weren't changing the world. They were changing their brand strategy. They trained for seatbelts? So what was their intense preparation like? NASA astronauts train for years. These women? 2 days. And what did they learn? How to buckle a seatbelt, how to sit still, how to pose for the landing. I wish I were joking, but even their press team admitted it. They practiced getting in and out of the capsule. That's it. They're calling themselves a flight crew. That's like me calling myself a pilot because I watched Top Gun twice. And the worst part? They genuinely believe they're making history. They are so deep in the delusion that they can't even hear the laughter echoing from Earth. Performative empowerment or expensive LARPing. Here's the truth. This wasn't a historic moment for women. It was a historic moment for PR. It was space tourism dressed up in empowerment buzzwords. A billion-dollar cosplay session where the costume was a jumpsuit and the mission was attention. And, somehow, they made it all about themselves. It wasn't about science. It wasn't about the future. It was about turning a billionaire's girlfriend into an astronaut without any of the work. And that's not progress. That's privilege in a spacesuit. We're supposed to believe this will inspire little girls to become astronauts. But what it's actually saying is, if you date the right guy, you too can float in zero gravity for 8 minutes. Don't act like this opened doors. It opened TikTok. And while they were up there holding flowers and talking about their feelings, the rest of us were just hoping eggs would go on sale. Gayle King dropped to her knees and kissed the ground upon landing. "I just need a moment to connect with the Earth, to really appreciate it for a second," she said, clearly emotional. Carrie Ann Flynn was the last to exit the spacecraft. Pointing skyward, she exclaimed, "I went to space!" A crowd of celebrity guests had gathered to witness the launch from the viewing platform. Among them, Khloe Kardashian shared her reaction. "I didn't expect to feel so emotional. It's hard to put into words. My adrenaline's through the roof, and I'm just standing here in awe." She added, "In today's world, whatever you dream is within reach. Dream big, reach for the stars, because maybe, one day, you'll find yourself among them." Oprah Winfrey, speaking about her longtime friend Gayle King, revealed the journey was especially meaningful. Gayle has serious flight anxiety. I mean, she grabs someone's hand the second turbulence hits. This wasn't just a trip. It was her facing a deep fear and pushing through. The spacecraft operated entirely on its own. No pilots were needed, and the crew had no manual controls. The last time an all-female space mission took place was over 60 years ago, when Soviet cosmonaut Valentina Tereshkova became the first woman to travel into space on her solo Vostok 6 mission. While no all-female missions have followed since, women have continued to play key roles in space exploration. With space tourism still in its early days, each successful launch marks a significant milestone, proving that commercial spaceflights can be both possible and safe. The final frontier is ego. So what did we learn? That space is no longer the final frontier. Ego is. That billionaires will do anything to feel deep, and celebrities will say anything to sound profound. This wasn't a mission. It was a mood board. A very expensive, highly curated, extremely cringe mood board. One small step for woman, one giant leap backwards for mankind. And if this is the future of space travel, I think I'll stay grounded. But hey, what do I know? I've only been on the Haunted Mansion at Disney World 6 times. Guess I'm a paranormal investigator now.
Please subscribe to my channel for more extremely exciting celebrity news.